Välkomna tillbaka till Stora Aktiedagen här i Stockholm den 29 november 2022. Vi har nu nöjet att snart få lyssna till Biosergen och det är bolagets CFO Nils Larsen som kommer att berätta och ge oss en bild av vart företaget befinner sig och vart de är på väg. Jag kan säga att vi kommer nu att byta språk because this presentation will be given in English. Welcome, Nils. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, I will tell something about Biosergen. Biosergen was listed in June 21 at the stock exchange in Stockholm and on the First North. And I will tell you a bit of what it is we are doing. We are actually addressing one of the worst unmet medical needs, and that is a indication which is not very well known, at least in Scandinavia and maybe in Europe. It's invasive fungal infection, and this invasive fungal infection is actually increasing a lot because people are getting more weakened immune systems, and at hospitals we can get, because of the sanitation routines are not very well in the underdeveloped world, and we are using more and more catheters that gives more invasive fungal infections. And the types of medication we are using mostly is actually inhibiting the fungal infection, which means that the fungus can develop resistance. And then the way we are living, moving more around, that is also helping to the increasing invasive fungal infections. And another thing is that this area, fungal infection, is not very, you could say, popular. The big pharma is pulling out. It's not many companies are working in this area. So, what is fungal infection? We are all exposed to fungi, but the average healthy person can fight the fungus and will not be sick. But we have cancer patients, we have diabetes, HIV, with a compromised immune system, and they can develop invasive fungal infection. And in hospitals, as I said, we're using catheters that can push the fungus into the bloodstream. And because of the drugs, many of the drugs we're using with resistance development, people will develop this invasive fungal infection, and that can result in the situation where the person actually will die from invasive fungal infection and not from the original illness. 150 million people are having fungal infections, and 1.7 million are dying from this disease. And if we compare fungal infection with known cancer indications, then we can actually see that fungal infection is as big as indication as, for instance, liver cancer. No, it is liver cancer. This situation is developing, and the situation is now recognized by WHO and CDC as a global health threat. The four most threatening invasive fungal infections are candidiasis, which is 750,000, Aspergillus is more than 300,000, and Cryptococcus is 200,000, and Pneumocystis is 500,000. All of these indications are targeted by our drug. The challenge diagnosing and treating fungal infection is that fungi pathogenic are actually increasing. So 50 years ago, there were maybe 30, 40 fungi that was pathogenic for humans. Today, we see 300 fungi that is pathogenic for humans. And there is an increase in the frequency and the severity of the fungal infections. Early diagnostics is important to fight fungal infections. We see patients coming into hospitals with fungal infection, and in a couple of days, they could risk dying. The current diagnostic methods, they lack sensitivity and specificity, and they're not widespread in developing countries. Some of the current diagnostics, they take simply too long to find out what fungus is it and what treatment should we use. And I said most treatments, they're actually only inhibiting, preventing the fungus from growing, but that could actually give resistance. The fungus will develop resistance. Another thing in the treatment available today is that they are kidney toxic. And that means if you use this drug, then the patient could risk of dying from a damaged liver. Our drug is developed from a natural occurring chemical, which is fungicidal. That means that this drug kills the fungus. Our drug is it is not kidney toxic. There's no genotoxicity. There's no cardiovascular or central nervous effects on the drug. And the way this drug works is that it binds to ergosterol, which is an enzyme in the fungus cell, and opens the pores, so the cell will die. And this ergosterol is only in fungus cells and not in human cells. BST-005 has a very broad spectrum of activity. You can see that BST-005 can be used for Candida, Aspergillus, Fusarium, Mucor, and Cryptococcus, which amphotericin B also can be used for. Those two drugs, they are polyene macrolides. Then we have the azoles. They are not as broad-spectred as the polyene macrolides. And the quinocardins, that is the same. Then you could ask, why is BST-005, why is that better than amphotericin B? And the answer is that amphotericin B is kidney toxic. We can see that in hospitals where they are treating patients with amphotericin B, they have to stop treatment up to 50% of the patients because of kidney toxicity. This is just to show the performance of Ambisome, which yes, Ambisome and BST-005. We have treated mouse with the drug, and we can see that BST-005 has a survival rate of 90%, where Ambisome is down to 30, that is in candidiasis, and in aspergillosis we see a survival rate of 60 towards 20, so it's more potent. And we have also made this study in immunocompromised mice with a clinical dose of Ambisome and a 8 times lower dose, and what we see is that no matter how big a dose we give, we can actually see that BST-005 gives the same result as Ambisome. We've also been looking at the kidney toxicity, and what we see is that when we raise the dose with Ambisome, the kidney toxicity is rising, and with BST-005, the toxicity is low and is flattening out. What we do, we focus on life-threatening, difficult to treat, resistant invasive fungal infection, and we're also focusing on the safety for the patient. The clinical development, we are clinically developing the drug, and the fungicidal effect and safety will be used to avoid resistance, and we will also develop this drug, this treatment into other indications. The drug we have today and the treatment we are giving is an IV, intravenous treatment, and we are developing also an oral formulation and long-targeted formulation. What our vision is to have BST-005 as a first-line treatment to help and save the lives of thousands of patients. And we are expecting to emerge as a leading international company within fungi infections. The way we are working is that we are a very small company, number of people. We are 4 people in the company, and we are using external companies and research organizations to help us and develop the drug. That is the focus for us. That is to develop the drug and get it out and have as small an organization as possible. In time, we believe we will have a very small sales force. It is not, if we look at the US and Europe, selling this drug will not require a very large sales force. So that is what we believe we will do. And then we will make partnerships other places. The global antifungal market is approximately 16 billion, where the polyenes is having a 10% market share, the azoles 42%, echinocandins 32%, and the alamines 16%. What we believe is that we will definitely be a very good competitor on the polyene market, but we also think with the profile of the drug that we will be able to go into the azole and echinocandin market. So we think we will have a possibility of a large market share with the profile of the drug. We have a strong patent protection in the USA, Europe, Japan, and China. We have a patent application pending, and we are, of course, still working on new patent coming in. At the moment, we are running a clinical study in healthy volunteers in Australia. It is a double-blinded study where we are looking at safety. We're looking at PK in up to 72 volunteers. The first subject was recruited in Q1 this year, and we've just finished the SAD part, and we will commence with the MAD part, and we're actually recruiting to the MAD part right now. We are working on planning phase 2 studies. It's very important for us to go into patients where we also can get the efficacy of the drug measured. We believe we can have the first trial patient recruited in a phase 2 trial Q3 23, and first top-line data from the first patients in Q3 24. Our financial status is that in September we raised 42 million, and the 42 million, that is to finalize our phase 1 study, that is to begin treatment of patients with difficult to treat indications, and also to cover the pharmaceutical development for the phase 2 drug requirements. With the shares we issued in September, there was a warrant attached, and this warrant will mature in August 23, and that will hopefully bring us 38 million into the company. And this funding for the 42 million and 38 million, that can bring us into the end of 24. The major inflection points, that will be this SAD top-line data, and we will come out with information about that shortly. In Q2 23, we will have top-line data from the MAD part, and that means that at that time we will have data from the full phase 1 study. Then we expect to start clinical trials in patients in Q3 23, and we'll have top-line data from that study in Q3 23, and in Q3 24 we will begin clinical trials with our nano product. The management is Peter Andersen, CEO. He's been working in the pharma industry for many years and was also CEO in a company called Forward Pharma, and I think that is one of the most successful stories from biotech companies in Denmark. And then we have Tine Kold Olsen as our Chief Operations Officer, and she is dealing with our clinical program and our CMC work. We have a large board, which is very supportive in many ways. It is all people coming from the pharma world with a lot of experience, and we have our two largest investors, Østersøstiftelsen, Mathias Klintemar and Torsten Gösch from Rosetta Capital in the board. And we have a very loyal investor base. As of now, we have Østersøstiftelsen with 44% of our shares, and Rosetta Capital with 21%. And we have in all 42 million, more than 42 million shares out. Thank you.
Many thanks, Niels. Interesting. One thing that caught my attention during your presentation here was that you said that your product will be first-line treatment. Could you elaborate on that a little bit and make me understand it even better?
Yeah, yes. We believe we will be first-line treatment because of this resistant problem. The problem with diagnosing what fungus is it, what treatment can we give. It's pretty easy to give the wrong treatment, and it's important to have the right treatment as soon as possible. So with the other treatments available not being so broad-spectred, developing resistance, then it's easy, or I would say then it would be easy to choose a drug that is broad-spectred,
okay,
which will kill the fungus and will be very safe, have no kidney toxicity. So if you could choose between Ambisome and BST-005, then
it's a clear choice.
I would prefer
of course.
BST-005, and I will know that the fungus will be killed.
Yeah, well understood.
Yeah.
We have a question from the audience, and it reads, why are fungi problems increasing in our time? Is it a Western developed nation issue, or is it as common all around the world, or do you have an answer to that?
Yes, it's fungal infection. That is all over the world. Invasive fungal infections, they are mostly in the developing countries. But what we see right now is that invasive fungal infections are actually coming into the developed world because we have more people immunocompromised. Our hospitals where we're using catheters and things like that, then the basis for developing invasive fungal infections are there.
Okay.
We saw a couple of years ago, we saw outbreaks in the US, in Texas, and in Washington D.C. Invasive fungal infections. So it's developing, and there's also right now we have the melting ice.
Mm-hmm.
we don't know what is what is coming out of the melting ice. So a lot of new fungi, a lot of new bacteria are coming out. So I think we can see new fungi, new bacteria developing.
As of today,
yeah.
What kind of treatments are doctors using in order to treat the kind of problem as of today? You mentioned some of them. Toxicity is one problem, for example.
Yes, but if you have a person coming in with a fungal infection, then the doctors will try and figure out what kind of fungus is it, and then they will use probably nasol or echinocandin. And if that doesn't work, then the last resort would be ambisome today.
Okay.
And if that works, it's good. If it doesn't, or if you get kitten toxicity, then you need to be taken out of that treatment.
Okay.
And then
there are not so many options left.
There's not so many options left.
Okay.
That's right.
In your opinion, what are the upcoming challenges that you're facing ahead of you?
Well, we are, as I said, we are finishing our phase 1 study.
Yeah.
The phase 1 study, or phase 1 studies, they require, or the drug you're using for a phase 1 study, the requirements to that, they are not so high as they are in phase 2 studies. So right now we are, our CMC part, we are developing the way we are producing the drug to a larger scale, more pure. One thing is to cook for 4 persons.
Yeah.
Another thing is to cook for 20. So it's not just adding up. So we are developing that, but that is a problem all companies have. And then we are discussing with a lot of good people around the world what indication we would like to go in. We think we will go into aspergillus and mucormycosis, but also where to do it, which wards, which hospitals, because it's very, very urgent for us to get this product out to the market as soon as possible. So we need to find the right indication and the right place to do the studies.
Thank you very much, Nils. Thanks for coming here, and good luck into the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tack så mycket.